As early as next week, Nintendo will be debuting what may be its final Nintendo Direct for the Switch era. With that, we'll begin our transition from the Nintendo Switch to its successor, which we call the Switch 2. Well, for the time being, that is. The one thing that has amazed me with the Switch recently is that despite the presence of the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series systems, it's still chugging along pretty well, and that it might outsell not just the Nintendo DS, but also the PlayStation 2's lifetime sales. And not only that, they're still providing plenty of games for the player to pick up, even compared to the PlayStation 5. It's something that we've lost sight of when it comes to video games. It's not about the graphical power of the system, but more about the games that are fun to play and enjoyable. That being said, I do have my own worries for the Switch's successor. No, it's not about any concerns about backwards compatibility, as there is growing proof that the successor will be backwards compatible with the Switch 1 software. My biggest concern for the Switch successor is that it will fall into the same trap that Sony, Microsoft, and the rest of the video game industry has fallen into. Bigger budgets, bigger development crews, bigger development times, all for the sake of realistic graphics. As I pointed out in a previous Switch Watch, both Sony and Microsoft aren't releasing as many interesting titles on the PS5 or Xbox Series systems as we thought. While Microsoft is releasing first-party games, some of these titles are also making their way not just to the PC, but also for the PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch, especially Hi-Fi Rush, a game with a solid reputation only with its development studio, Tango Gameworks, being shut down. And while Sony has it better than Microsoft, that ain't saying much when their PlayStation first-party titles are being ported to Steam, Epic Game Store, and GOG, with Major League Baseball The Show showing up on Xbox and Switch, and LEGO Horizons Adventures also coming to the Nintendo Switch. I mean, sure, the Nintendo Switch successor is going to be a major step up from its original, but I want Nintendo to continue down the same path when it comes to providing plenty of reasons to own the system. Even if a major game like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom takes long to complete, Nintendo should provide some smaller games to keep the audience interested. We're still waiting for Metroid Prime 4 to finally release. And how did Nintendo keep us interested in the franchise? By releasing 2 Metroid games on the Switch. One is a game that finally got a release, Metroid Dread. The other was a remaster of a GameCube classic that finally saw the light of day on Nintendo Switch, Metroid Prime Remastered. And knowing them, Prime 2 and 3 might be around the corner. I don't want Nintendo to pool all of their resources into this big mega game like how big AAA companies always do. It gives us less games to play, and this is coming from someone who did say that we had too many games on the Switch. Yes, the Switch did get more games coming to their system compared to other Nintendo consoles, even compared to the Super NES, the Nintendo GameCube, and Nintendo Wii. But looking back, I think I was too harsh on that kind of topic. There are still a lot of games on Nintendo Switch, even more than I realized. But at the same time, I think it was more of a blessing than a curse to see that amount of input, even from Nintendo. Sometimes, we shouldn't take these kind of games for granted if a major drought were to consume the entire industry. But what can be done about it? What can Nintendo learn from the mistakes of the video game industry? Ironically, it's more about working more with less power, or the illusion of less power. The Game Boy era was the best example of this. While it used a smaller resolution, only had 4 shades of yellow-green, and could render less sprites on the screen, Nintendo is also known for doing a whole lot with less graphical power, and it showed well with games like the Super Mario Land games, Zelda Link's Awakening, and Pokemon, to name a few. These smaller development teams, like the ones who did the Game Boy games, are key to help keep gamers interested in the Switch successor. It does lead more to a quantity over quality thing. But when you consider that indie titles worked with less power and still resulted in some great games, it proved that you don't need photorealistic graphics for a fun game. That was just mere icing on the cake. The first year of the Switch successor will be the most critical moment for Nintendo. And the obvious question is this: Will it do well in the most chaotic era of video games ever, or will it fall into the same trap that befell Sony and Microsoft? I don't know the answers yet, but only time will tell if the Switch successor will become a big hit or if it will end up like the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series systems. Anyway, that's my opinion. What's yours? Now, on a side note, Limited Run Games has confirmed that its next showcase will be on June 20th at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. My next Switch watch will combine both the Nintendo Direct and the Limited Run Showcase, just like in 2021. It will be our last Switch watch before the 100th Switch watch video. Stay tuned. Till then, I'm switching on out of here.